The millionaire saved her from an arranged marriage and then revealed his true identity. What happens when a desperate woman fleeing an arranged marriage accidentally hides in the car of the very man she's trying to escape from? Tonight's story will keep you on the edge of your seat as we follow Isabella's shocking discovery that changes everything she thought she knew about love, power, and destiny. The crystal chandeliers of the Whitmore Country Club cast dancing shadows across marble floors as Chicago's elite gather for what they believe will be the social event of the season. Isabella Chen, 25, stands pressed against the mahogany-paneled wall, her emerald silk gown feeling more like a cage than an outfit. Her raven-black hair cascades in perfect waves down her shoulders, but her dark eyes dart frantically around the room, searching for an escape route. The weight of her family's expectations presses down on her chest like a vice. Tonight, her parents plan to announce her engagement to a man she's never met, a billionaire named Ethan Cross, whose business empire could save her family's struggling tech company from bankruptcy. The irony isn't lost on her that in Silicon Valley, where innovation should mean freedom, she's about to become the most traditional commodity of all, a bride bought and sold for corporate gain. Her father, David Chen, moves through the crowd with practiced ease, his salt and pepper hair gleaming under the lights as he shakes hands with investors and board members. Her mother, Linda, glides beside him in a navy designer dress, her smile as polished and artificial as the diamonds at her throat. They built Chen Technologies from nothing, working 18-hour days in a garage 20 years ago. Now, facing their first major crisis, they're willing to sacrifice their daughter's happiness to save their legacy. Isabella clutches her small beaded purse, her knuckles white. Inside, she has exactly $200 in cash, her driver's license, and a credit card her parents will surely cancel the moment they discover she's gone. No phone. She left it deliberately in her bedroom, knowing they'd track her location within minutes. The announcement looms like a guillotine. In 30 minutes, her father will call for attention, raise his champagne glass, and introduce her to Ethan Cross as his future daughter-in-law. The contract has been signed, the merger terms agreed upon. She's the final piece in a puzzle she never asked to be part of. A waiter glides past with a tray of champagne flutes, and Isabella forces herself to take one, her hand trembling slightly. The golden liquid catches the light, but she can't bring herself to drink. Her stomach churns with a mixture of anxiety and rebellion. She spent her entire life being the perfect daughter, Harvard MBA, fluent in 3 languages, groomed to take over the family business. But this crosses a line she can't uncross. The crowd's laughter feels suffocating. These people, draped in designer clothes and dripping with jewelry, see her engagement as entertainment, a merging of 2 powerful families. They don't see the girl who dreamed of choosing her own path, her own partner, her own future. Isabella sets the untouched champagne on a nearby table and moves toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the club's sprawling grounds. The gardens stretch into darkness, dotted with strategically placed spotlights that create pools of amber light. Beyond the manicured lawns, she can see the parking area where dozens of luxury cars gleam under the moon. Her pulse quickens. The service entrance to the kitchens is just around the corner, past the coat check. If she times it right, she can slip out while her parents are distracted by their networking. The valet stand sits empty. Most guests arrived over an hour ago, and the attendants have retreated to their station near the main entrance. She glances back at the crowd. Her father is deep in conversation with 3 men in identical black suits, their body language speaking of serious money and serious deals. Her mother is across the room, air-kissing acquaintances and playing the role of the gracious hostess. Neither is watching Isabella. This is her chance. Isabella takes a steadying breath and moves with practiced grace toward the hallway that leads to the service areas. Her heels click softly on the marble, but the sound is swallowed by the string quartet's gentle melody and the constant hum of conversation. A server carrying an empty tray nods politely as she passes, assuming she's heading to the ladies' room. The service door opens silently, and suddenly she's outside in the crisp October air. The temperature is a shock after the warmth of the crowded ballroom, and goosebumps rise on her arms. The sounds of the party fade to a distant murmur as she hurries across the gravel path that leads to the parking area. Rows of expensive cars stretch before her like an automotive showing of wealth. Mercedes sedans, BMW SUVs, a few Porsches, and at least 3 Ferraris. The moonlight transforms the metal and glass into a sea of gleaming possibilities. Most are locked, their security systems blinking red warnings. But there, about 50 yards away, sits a midnight blue Maserati with its driver's side door slightly ajar. Isabella's heart pounds as she approaches the car. The interior is leather and luxury, and the keys dangle from the ignition like an invitation to freedom. She looks back toward the country club, its windows glowing warmly in the darkness. In 20 minutes, maybe less, her parents will notice her absence. In 30 minutes, they'll be frantic. She slides into the back seat, pulling the door closed with the softest possible click. The leather is cool against her skin, and the car smells of expensive cologne, sandalwood and bergamot with hints of cedar. Whoever owns this car has impeccable taste and serious money. Isabella crouches behind the driver's seat, her gown pooling around her in a sea of emerald silk. Her breathing sounds impossibly loud in the confined space, and she presses a hand to her chest, willing her heart to slow down. The plan, such as it is, seems almost laughably simple. Wait for the owner to return, ride until they stop, then disappear into whatever city or town they reach. She has enough cash for a bus ticket, maybe even a cheap motel room for a night or two. After that, she hasn't thought beyond escape. Minutes tick by with agonizing slowness. The distant sounds of the party continue. Laughter, music, the occasional clink of glassware. Isabella shifts carefully, trying to find a more comfortable position without making noise. Her designer gown wasn't meant for hiding in back seats, and the beading catches on the leather upholstery. She thinks about her parents' reaction when they discover her absence. Her father's controlled fury, the way his jaw will tighten and his eyes will narrow. Her mother's panic, followed quickly by social embarrassment. What will people think? What will they tell the crosses? The business implications alone will send her father into crisis mode. But underneath their anger, she knows there will be hurt, real, genuine pain that their daughter chose rebellion over family loyalty. The thought makes her chest ache, but not enough to change her mind. She can't live a life that isn't hers, can't marry a stranger to save a company, can't sacrifice her future for their past mistakes. The sound of approaching footsteps on gravel snaps her attention back to the present. Isabella freezes, every muscle in her body tensed. The footsteps are confident, unhurried, someone who belongs here, who owns the very car she's hiding in. The driver's door opens and the car shifts slightly as someone settles into the seat. Isabella holds her breath, pressing herself lower behind the headrest. Keys jingle, and the engine purrs to life with the smooth rumble of German engineering. The car begins to move, gravel crunching under the tires as they leave the parking area and turn onto the main road. Isabella allows herself a small exhale of relief. Phase 1 complete. She's escaped the country club. Now she just needs to remain hidden until they reach wherever this stranger is going, then slip away into anonymity. The car accelerates smoothly, and through her cramped position, Isabella can see streetlights flashing past the windows. They're heading away from the country club, away from her parents, away from the life that was planned for her. For the first time in hours, she feels like she can breathe. Then a voice, rich and amused, cuts through the silence. Most people ask for a ride before they take one. You, sweetheart, just hijacked my car. Isabella's blood turns to ice. Her eyes dart to the rearview mirror, where she meets a pair of piercing blue eyes that gleam with humor and curiosity. The man's face is partially shadowed, but she can see the strong line of his jaw, dark hair that looks carelessly styled, and a smile that's both charming and dangerous. He doesn't slow the car, doesn't pull over. He just keeps driving, one hand casual on the steering wheel, the other draped over the gear shift. His presence fills the car's interior, commanding and confident in a way that makes Isabella's skin prickle with awareness. "I didn't hijack anything," she manages, her voice sharper than she feels. She sits up slightly, trying to reclaim some dignity despite being caught in such an compromising position. Her cheeks burn with embarrassment and something else, an unexpected flutter of attraction that she definitely doesn't want to acknowledge. "I just needed to get away." Get away. His tone is playful, but there's an edge of authority that makes her stomach flip. The car slides through a curve with mechanical precision, and she catches a hint of his cologne, the same sandalwood and cedar scent that permeates the interior. From what, exactly? The fancy party you just escaped from, or someone specific you're running from? Isabella hesitates. The truth sits heavy on her tongue. She's running from an arranged marriage to a man she's never met, a billionaire named Ethan Cross, who her parents see as their salvation. But how does she explain that to a stranger who's already caught her in his car like some kind of modern-day car thief? "The party," she says finally, her voice quiet. "My family. They're trying to force me into a marriage I want no part of, to a man I've never even met." In the rearview mirror, she sees his eyebrows rise slightly. "Never met. That's cold, even for Chicago high society. What's this guy done to make you bolt like this?" "His name is Ethan Cross," she says, the words bitter in her mouth. "Some tech billionaire my parents think will save their company. They've been planning this for months. Mergers, acquisitions, strategic alliances. I'm just the price they're willing to pay." Her voice cracks slightly, vulnerability bleeding through despite her efforts to stay strong. The car slows slightly, and she sees the man's hands tighten on the steering wheel. When he speaks again, his voice has lost some of its playful edge. "Ethan Cross," he repeats slowly. "That's quite a situation you're in, mystery girl." He pauses, and she catches him studying her in the mirror again. "So you thought my car was your ticket to freedom?" "It was the only option," she admits, leaning forward slightly. The movement brings her closer to him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body, to notice the way his dark hair curls slightly at the nape of his neck. "I had to get away before they announced the engagement. Before my life got signed away to someone I don't even know." "The name's Ryan," he says, breaking the tension. "Ryan Blake, and you are?" "Isabella Chen," she replies, then pauses. "You were at the party. I think I saw you earlier, near the bar." Ryan chuckles, but there's something guarded in the sound. "Guilty as charged, though I have to say the company was pretty stuffy. Not much soul in that crowd." His eyes meet hers in the mirror again, and the intensity there makes her breath catch. "So, Isabella Chen, what's the plan? You going to ride with me to wherever I'm heading, or do you have somewhere specific in mind?" The question hangs in the air between them. Isabella realizes she hasn't thought beyond the escape itself. She has no destination, no real plan, just a desperate need to be anywhere but at that country club, facing an arranged marriage to a stranger. "I just need to be somewhere they won't find me," she says, her voice steadier than she feels. "Away from my family, away from this Ethan Cross situation." "Sounds like a real winner, this Cross guy," Ryan says, sarcasm dripping from his words. "Tell you what, I've got a place about an hour outside the city. Private, secure, off the beaten path. You could lay low there for a while, figure out your next move." Isabella's eyes widen. Hope flickers in her chest, but caution holds her back. "You'd do that? Why? You don't even know me." Ryan's smile widens, visible in the mirror, and there's something both reassuring and dangerous about it. "Let's just say I have a soft spot for people fighting against impossible odds." He pauses, his voice dropping to a lower register that sends an unwelcome shiver down her spine. But fair warning, Isabella, my hospitality comes with a catch. What kind of catch? She asks, though she's not sure she wants to know the answer. Don't fall for me, he says, his grin turning wickedly charming. That would just complicate things for both of us. Isabella feels heat flood her cheeks. The audacity of his statement should irritate her, but instead, she finds herself fighting back a smile. You're unbelievable, she says, crossing her arms. I'm not looking to fall for anyone, especially not some arrogant stranger who thinks he's God's gift to women. I don't think I'm God's gift, Ryan says, clearly enjoying her reaction. I know I am. He adjusts the rearview mirror slightly, making sure their eyes meet. But seriously, the offer stands. Safe house, no questions asked. Stay as long as you need to. What do you say? Isabella studies his reflection, trying to read the man behind the charm. There's something about him that feels solid, trustworthy, despite his cockiness. The alternative is going back to face her parents in the arranged marriage, or trying to disappear into Chicago with $200 and no real plan. What's in it for you? She asks, her lawyer's training kicking in. Nobody offers help like this without wanting something in return. Ryan shrugs, but his eyes don't leave hers. Maybe I like a little excitement in my life. Maybe I see a woman with more fire than that dress suggests. His voice softens slightly. Or maybe I just don't like the idea of someone being forced into something they don't want. The sincerity in his words hits her unexpectedly. She finds herself leaning forward again, drawn by something she can't name. You don't know what I want, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Don't I? Ryan's voice is equally quiet, and the air in the car seems to thicken with unspoken tension. You want freedom, Isabella. You want the right to choose your own path. I'm offering you a chance to figure out what that path looks like. Isabella's throat tightens. Part of her wants to trust him, to take the leap and see where it leads. Another part warns her that she might be jumping from one complicated situation into another. But the alternative, returning to her parents and their arrangement, isn't really an alternative at all. Okay, she says finally. I'll come with you. But this doesn't mean I trust you completely. Ryan laughs, a sound that seems to fill every corner of the car's interior. Smart woman. Trust should be earned. His eyes catch hers one more time in the mirror, and the promise in them makes her pulse quicken. Let's see how this plays out, Isabella Chen. The car speeds through the night, carrying Isabella away from everything she's ever known and toward an uncertain future with a man who's either her salvation or her next mistake. The city lights fade behind them as they head into the darkness, and Isabella feels the weight of her choice settling over her like a blanket, both comforting and terrifying. As the miles pass, Isabella finds herself studying Ryan's profile in the intermittent light from passing street lamps. There's something about him that doesn't quite fit with the typical Chicago social scene. His car screams money, but his manner is more down to earth than most of the trust fund babies she grew up around. His clothes are expensive but understated, and there's a confidence about him that feels earned rather than inherited. So what do you do? She asks, breaking the comfortable silence that has settled between them. When you're not rescuing runaway brides from country club parking lots, I'm in tech, he says, which could mean anything in their world. Software development mostly, some consulting work. It's a vague answer, the kind that could cover everything from coding to running a major corporation. That's pretty general, Isabella observes. Are you being mysterious on purpose? Or do you just not like talking about work? Ryan glances at her in the mirror, his expression unreadable. Little bit of both, maybe. What about you? Besides being the unwilling centerpiece of corporate mergers, what do you do with your time? I have an MBA from Harvard, she says. was supposed to take over Chen Technologies eventually. That was the plan, anyway, before… She gestures vaguely, indicating their current situation. Before your parents decided to use you as a bargaining chip, Ryan finishes, his voice carrying an edge of disgust. Something like that. Isabella looks out the window as they turn onto a more rural road. The city lights have disappeared entirely now, replaced by the occasional farmhouse or gas station. I actually love the business side of tech. The strategy, the innovation, the way a good idea can change everything. But I wanted to earn my place, not marry into it. That makes sense, Ryan says. And she can hear genuine understanding in his voice. Building something yourself hits different than having it handed to you. They drive in thoughtful silence for a while, the car's engine humming smoothly as they wind through increasingly rural landscape. Isabella finds herself relaxing despite the strangeness of her situation. Ryan's presence is oddly comforting. He exudes a calm confidence that makes her feel safe, even as she's acutely aware that she knows almost nothing about him. The property they eventually arrive at takes Isabella's breath away. The house sits on what looks like several acres, a sprawling modern structure of glass and steel that seems to emerge from the landscape itself. Security lights illuminate a circular driveway, and beyond the house, she can see the shadow of what might be a guest house or workshop. "This is your place?" she asks, as Ryan parks near the front entrance. "Home sweet home," he confirms, killing the engine. "Not exactly what you were expecting?" Isabella shakes her head, stepping out of the car into the cool night air. "It's beautiful and big." "Do you live here alone?" "Most of the time," Ryan says, coming around to her side of the car. "I like my privacy." He studies her face in the porch lights, and she becomes suddenly aware of how she must look. Designer gown wrinkled from hiding in his back seat, her carefully styled hair coming loose from its pins. "I must look ridiculous," she says, smoothing down her skirt. "You look," Ryan says, his voice dropping to that lower register that makes her skin tingle, "like a woman who just took control of her own life. That's not ridiculous at all." The compliment catches her off guard, and she finds herself looking away to hide the flush she feels creeping up her neck. "Thank you," she says quietly. "For this. For helping me." "Don't thank me yet," Ryan says, moving toward the front door. "You might hate my house rules." The interior of Ryan's home is as impressive as the exterior. Clean lines, expensive furnishings, but with enough personal touches to feel lived in rather than sterile. Isabella follows him through a spacious living area with floor-to-ceiling windows that would offer stunning views in daylight. "Guest rooms upstairs," Ryan says, leading her to a curving staircase. "Bathrooms attached, and there should be some clothes in the closet that might fit. Previous guest left some things behind." Isabella raises an eyebrow. "Previous guest?" "My sister," Ryan clarifies with a grin. "She stays here sometimes when she's between apartments. Has a habit of leaving half her wardrobe behind." The guest room is beautiful, all clean lines and neutral colors, with a king-sized bed that looks incredibly inviting after the day she's had. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer what Isabella assumes will be a view of gardens and possibly a lake. "Get some rest," Ryan says from the doorway. "We can figure out your next move tomorrow. Kitchen's downstairs if you get hungry. Just try not to raid my good scotch." "I don't drink scotch," Isabella says, then adds more softly, "Thank you. Again." "I know this is crazy, letting a stranger into your home." "We're all strangers until we're not," Ryan says, his expression unusually serious. "Sleep well, Isabella?" After he leaves, Isabella explores the room more thoroughly. The closet does indeed contain women's clothing, jeans, sweaters, casual dresses, all in approximately her size. The attached bathroom is a marvel of modern design, all marble and gleaming fixtures. She catches sight of herself in the mirror and hardly recognizes the woman looking back. Her dress is indeed wrinkled, her makeup smudged, her hair escaping its careful styling. But there's something different in her eyes, a spark that wasn't there before. For the first time in months, maybe years, she looks alive. Isabella showers and changes into a pair of soft pajamas she finds in the dresser, then crawls into the impossibly comfortable bed. Through the windows, she can see nothing but darkness and the occasional twinkle of a star. The silence is profound after a lifetime of city noise. She should be exhausted, but her mind races with everything that's happened. This morning, she woke up in her childhood bedroom, preparing for what she thought would be the worst day of her life. Now she's in a stranger's guest room, having escaped an arranged marriage and thrown her entire future into uncertainty. The smart thing would be to start planning her next move. Where will she go? How will she support herself if her parents cut her off financially? What will happen to Chen Technologies if the merger with Cross Industries falls through? But tonight, wrapped in expensive sheets in Ryan Blake's guest room, Isabella finds she doesn't want to think about any of that. Tonight, she just wants to savor the feeling of having chosen something for herself, of having taken control of her own story. She falls asleep thinking about blue eyes in a rearview mirror and a voice that made dangerous promises in the dark. Isabella wakes to the smell of coffee and something that might be bacon. Sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing the view that was hidden by darkness the night before. Ryan's property is even more impressive in daylight. Manicured grounds stretch toward a small lake, with what looks like a walking path winding through mature trees. She dresses in jeans and a sweater from the closet, both of which fit reasonably well, and makes her way downstairs. The kitchen is a chef's dream, professional-grade appliances, marble countertops, and a breakfast bar that overlooks the living area. Ryan stands at the stove, spatula in hand, looking completely at home in his domain. He's traded his formal party attire for dark jeans and a grey Henley that clings to what Isabella can't help but notice is an impressively athletic build. His dark hair is slightly mussed, as if he's been running his hands through it. "Morning, sleeping beauty," he says without turning around. "Hope you like eggs, Benedict." "Fair warning, I'm a bit of a perfectionist in the kitchen." "You cook." Isabella settles onto one of the bar stools. Accepting the cup of coffee, he slides across the counter. It's perfect, strong but not bitter, with just a hint of vanilla. "One of my many talents," Ryan says with that characteristic grin. "Can't survive on takeout forever, and I like to eat well." He plates 2 servings with restaurant-quality presentation and joins her at the breakfast bar. The food is incredible, and Isabella realizes she hasn't eaten since lunch the previous day. "This is amazing," she says between bites. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My grandmother," Ryan says, his expression softening. "She insisted I learn to take care of myself. Said a man who couldn't cook was a man who'd always be dependent on someone else." Smart woman. The smartest. Ryan's tone suggests there's a story there, but he doesn't elaborate. Instead, he studies Isabella over his coffee cup. "So, have you thought about what comes next? Your family's probably in full panic mode by now." Isabella's stomach tightens at the mention of her parents. They'll be furious and worried, and trying to figure out how to spin my disappearance to minimize damage to the deal with Cross Industries. "What about this Ethan Cross? How do you think he's taking the news that his bride-to-be has gone missing?" Isabella shrugs. "I have no idea. I don't know anything about him except that he's rich enough to bail out my family's company. For all I know, he's relieved. Maybe he didn't want an arranged marriage any more than I did." Ryan makes a non-committal sound, his expression unreadable. "Maybe, though from what I hear, Ethan Cross isn't the type to let business deals fall through without a fight." "You know him?" Isabella looks up sharply. "Ethan Cross?" "Know of him," Ryan corrects. "The tech world's not that big, especially at the top. His company, Cross Industries, has quite a reputation. Aggressive acquisitions, innovative software, tends to get what he wants. Isabella feels a chill run down her spine. What do you mean, gets what he wants? Just that he's not someone who gives up easily. If your family promised him a merger sealed with a marriage, he's probably not going to just walk away because you've temporarily disappeared. The word temporarily hangs in the air between them. Isabella realizes that despite her dramatic escape, she hasn't actually solved her problem. She's just delayed it. Sooner or later, she'll have to face her family and their expectations. Maybe I should call them, she says reluctantly. Let them know I'm safe at least. Maybe, Ryan agrees. But first, let's talk about what you actually want. Not what your family wants, not what's good for business, but what Isabella Chen wants for her life. The question catches her off guard. I don't know, she admits. I've spent so long being the perfect daughter, the heir apparent, that I'm not sure I know who I am outside of those roles. Then that's where we start, Ryan says, standing and collecting their empty plates, figuring out who you are when nobody else is watching. Over the next few days, Isabella begins to discover what that means. Ryan's house becomes a sanctuary, where she can breathe without the weight of expectations crushing down on her. She explores the extensive grounds, reads books from his well-stocked library, and slowly starts to remember parts of herself that had been buried under years of careful molding. Ryan is the perfect host, attentive without being overwhelming, present without being intrusive. He works from a home office during the day, taking calls and video conferences that suggest his business is more complex than simple software consulting. But he always makes time for meals together, for walks around the property, for long conversations that range from technology and business to books and travel and dreams. Isabella finds herself looking forward to these interactions more than she should. There's something magnetic about Ryan's presence. The way he listens with complete attention. The way he challenges her assumptions without making her feel judged. His sense of humor catches her off guard, and she discovers that she likes making him laugh, likes the way his eyes crinkle when she says something that amuses him. On the third evening, they're sitting on the back patio, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Isabella has borrowed one of his sister's sweaters, and Ryan has brought out a bottle of wine that probably costs more than most people spend on groceries in a month. Can I ask you something? Isabella says, swirling the wine in her glass. Shoot. Why did you really offer to help me? The truth this time, not the charming deflection. Ryan is quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the lake. Because I know what it's like to have your life planned out by other people, he says finally, to be seen as a business asset rather than a person. Your family's in business too. You could say that. Ryan's smile is rueful. Let's just say I understand the pressure of living up to certain expectations, of having your personal choices scrutinized for their strategic value. Isabella senses there's more to the story, but something in Ryan's expression tells her not to push. Instead, she finds herself studying his profile in the golden light, noting the strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair falls across his forehead. I keep waiting for you to ask for something, she says. As some kind of payment for your hospitality. Ryan turns to look at her, and the intensity in his blue eyes makes her breath catch. What makes you think I haven't already gotten what I wanted? Which is your company, he says simply. Having someone here who isn't impressed by the house or the money or any of the other things people usually care about. Someone who chose to trust me not because of what I could do for them, but because they didn't have anywhere else to go. The honesty in his words hits Isabella like a physical force. She realizes that despite all her caution, despite telling herself she doesn't trust him completely, she's begun to care about Ryan Blake in ways that have nothing to do with gratitude. That's dangerous thinking, she says softly. Why? Because it makes this feel like more than just a temporary arrangement. Ryan leans closer, close enough that she can see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes. Maybe it is. The air between them seems to shimmer with possibility. Isabella's heart pounds as Ryan reaches out to brush a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Isabella," he says, her name a whisper. She should pull away. Should remember that she's hiding from one complicated relationship and has no business starting another. Should think about all the reasons this is a terrible idea. Instead, she leans into his touch. "This is crazy," she breathes. "Completely," Ryan agrees, but he doesn't move away. "We barely know each other. I ran away from my own engagement party. I offered shelter to a car thief. I'm not a car thief." "Semantics," Ryan says with a grin, and then he's kissing her. The kiss is soft at first, tentative, a question rather than a demand. But when Isabella responds, when her hands fist in his shirt and she pulls him closer, it deepens into something hungry and desperate and achingly sweet. They break apart, breathing hard, foreheads touching, and Isabella feels like the world has shifted on its axis. "That was probably a mistake," she says. "Probably," Ryan agrees. "Want to make it again?" This time, she kisses him. They move inside as the last light fades from the sky, drawn by a gravitational pull that neither seems able to resist. In the living room, with the fire crackling in the hearth and the world reduced to just the two of them, they make love with a passion that surprises Isabella with its intensity. Ryan's touch is reverent, worshipful, as if she's something precious he's afraid of breaking. But there's hunger there too, a need that matches her own. When he whispers her name against her skin, when his hands trace patterns that make her arch beneath him, Isabella feels more alive than she has in years. Afterward, wrapped in Ryan's arms on the plush sofa, Isabella lets herself pretend that this could be real, that she could build a life here, in this beautiful house with this incredible man who sees her as more than a business transaction. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan asks, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "How different this is from what I expected my life to look like," Isabella admits. 3 days ago, I thought I knew exactly where I was headed. Arranged marriage, corporate merger, playing my part in other people's plans. Now I'm here with you, and I can't imagine being anywhere else." Ryan's arms tighten around her. "Stay then," he says simply. "As long as you want, we'll figure out the rest as we go." Isabella wants to say yes. The word sits on her tongue, ready to spill out. But even in the warm circle of Ryan's arms, reality has a way of intruding. "My family will come looking eventually," she says, "and when they do, we'll deal with it," Ryan says firmly. "Together." The promise in his voice makes Isabella's heart skip. She turns in his arms to look at him, studying the serious expression on his face. "You'd do that? Stand up to my family? To Ethan Cross?" Something flickers across Ryan's features, an expression too quick for Isabella to interpret. "I'd do whatever it takes to protect you," he says, and the intensity in his voice leaves no room for doubt. Isabella believes him. Against all logic, despite knowing him for only a few days, she believes that Ryan Blake would stand between her and the world if necessary. The realization is both thrilling and terrifying. They fall asleep tangled together on the sofa, the fire burning low in the hearth. Isabella dreams of blue eyes and gentle hands, and a future that stretches out before her like an unwritten book. She wakes to the sound of car doors slamming outside. Isabella's blood turns to ice as she recognizes the authoritative voices carrying across the morning air. Her father's clipped tones, her mother's sharp anxiety, and beneath it all, the smooth confidence of someone used to being obeyed. Ryan is already moving, pulling on his jeans with practiced efficiency. "Stay here," he says, his voice low and urgent. "Let me handle this." But Isabella is already reaching for her clothes, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anger. "No," she says firmly. I'm done hiding. If they've found me, then it's time to face this. Through the window, she can see 3 black SUVs parked in Ryan's circular driveway. Her parents emerge from the first vehicle, her father in one of his signature charcoal suits, her mother clutching her purse like a shield. From the second SUV, 2 men in expensive suits follow, lawyers, probably, or security. From the third vehicle steps a man Isabella has never seen before, but somehow knows immediately. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair, and an aura of command that's visible even from a distance. He moves with the confidence of someone who owns whatever room he enters, who's never heard the word no in any context that mattered. Ethan Cross, the man she was supposed to marry. That's him, Isabella whispers, and she feels Ryan go still beside her. Yeah, Ryan says quietly. That's him. There's something in Ryan's tone that makes Isabella look at him sharply, a recognition that goes beyond the general knowledge he claimed to have about Ethan Cross's reputation. Ryan, she says, but before he can respond, the doorbell rings with authority. Ryan moves toward the front door, and Isabella follows despite his earlier instruction to stay put. She's not going to cower in his living room while other people decide her fate. Ryan opens the door before the second ring, his posture relaxed but alert. Can I help you? He asks, as if 3 cars full of people showing up at his door at 8 in the morning is perfectly normal. David Chen steps forward, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Mr. Blake, I presume. I'm David Chen. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I have a lot of things, Ryan says mildly. You'll have to be more specific. My daughter, David says through gritted teeth. Isabella, we know she's here. Isabella steps into view before Ryan can respond. I'm here because I choose to be, she says, her voice steadier than she feels. I don't belong to anyone. Her mother gasps, reaching out as if to touch Isabella's face. Sweetheart, thank God you're safe. We've been so worried. When you disappeared from the party. I left, Isabella corrects. I wasn't kidnapped or coerced. I made a choice. A foolish choice, her father says harshly. Do you have any idea what you've done? The chaos you've caused? Mr. Cross flew in from New York specifically for the engagement announcement, and you decided to play some kind of childish game. Isabella's eyes move to the man standing slightly behind her parents. Up close, Ethan Cross is even more imposing, easily 6 feet tall, with the kind of perfectly groomed appearance that comes from unlimited resources and careful attention to image. His dark eyes study her with an intensity that makes her skin crawl. Miss Chen, Ethan says, his voice smooth and cultured. I'm disappointed we haven't had the chance to meet properly. Though I have to say, your father's description didn't do you justice. The casual possessiveness in his tone makes Isabella's temper flare. And you must be the man my parents promised me to without my consent. How wonderfully medieval of all of you. Ethan's smile doesn't reach his eyes. I prefer to think of it as a strategic alliance. One that benefits both our families significantly. Benefits you, you mean, Isabella says. I don't see any benefits for me in marrying a complete stranger. I think we should continue this conversation inside, David says, glancing around at Ryan's property with obvious calculation. This is a private family matter. Actually, Ryan says, his voice carrying a note of steel. This is my property. Which makes it my decision who comes inside. Ethan Cross speaks for the first time since his introduction, his attention focusing on Ryan with laser-like intensity. And you are. Ryan Blake, Ryan replies evenly. Isabella's host. Something flickers across Ethan's face. Recognition, perhaps, or surprise. Blake, he repeats slowly. Interesting. Isabella senses undercurrents she doesn't understand, tensions that go beyond the immediate situation. But before she can process them fully, her father is speaking again. "Mr. Blake, I'm prepared to compensate you for any inconvenience my daughter has caused, but she needs to come home now. There are contracts to honor, agreements that have been made." "Agreements that didn't include my signature," Isabella says firmly. "I never consented to any of this." "You're 25 years old," her mother says, her voice taking on the tone she used when Isabella was a rebellious teenager. "Old enough to understand that sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the greater good of the family." Sacrifices. Isabella feels her control slipping. "You want me to sacrifice my entire life, my chance at happiness, my right to choose my own partner, all so you can save a company that you drove into the ground with poor decisions?" The words hang in the air like a slap. David's face darkens, and Linda gasps as if Isabella has struck her physically. "How dare you?" David says, his voice low and dangerous. "Everything we've done, everything we've built, has been for you." "For your future?" "No," Isabella says, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. "It's been for your legacy, your reputation, your inability to accept that maybe, just maybe, you made mistakes that shouldn't be fixed by selling your daughter to the highest bidder." Ethan Cross steps forward, his presence filling the doorway. "Perhaps we're approaching this wrong," he says, his tone reasonable but with an undertone that makes Isabella's skin crawl. "Isabella, I understand your concerns. An arranged marriage is certainly old-fashioned. But consider the possibilities. Unlimited resources to pursue whatever interests you, the chance to merge two powerful companies, the opportunity to build something greater than either family could achieve alone. I'm not interested in opportunities that require me to marry someone I don't love," Isabella says flatly. "Love," Ethan repeats, as if the word is foreign to him. "An interesting concept. But surely you're practical enough to understand that love is a luxury most people can't afford. What we're offering is partnership, security, mutual benefit. What you're offering is a business transaction disguised as a marriage," Isabella shoots back. "And I'm not for sale." Ryan has been silent throughout this exchange, but now he steps forward, his presence somehow changing the entire dynamic of the confrontation. "I think," he says quietly, "that Isabella has made her position clear. She's not interested in your arrangement. Perhaps it's time for you to accept that and move on." Ethan's eyes narrow as he focuses on Ryan with renewed intensity. "And what exactly is your interest in this situation, Mr. Blake? What do you get out of inserting yourself into a private family matter?" There's something in Ethan's tone that suggests he knows more about Ryan than he's letting on. Isabella glances between the two men, noting the way they study each other like chess players calculating their next moves. "Maybe I just don't like seeing people forced into situations they don't want," Ryan says evenly. "How noble," Ethan says, his smile sharp. "Though I have to wonder if your motives are quite as altruistic as you claim." The tension between the two men is palpable, crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Isabella has the distinct impression that there are conversations happening beneath the surface, references and implications she's not privy to. "Enough," David says sharply. "Isabella, you've made your point. You're upset about the arrangement, and I understand that, but you've had your rebellion. Now it's time to come home and fulfill your obligations." "My only obligation is to myself," Isabella says. "And I'm not going anywhere." "Yes," her father says, his voice carrying the finality of a judge's verdict. "You are. Security will escort you to the car if necessary." The two men who emerged from the second SUV step forward at David's words, their intentions clear. Isabella's heart pounds as she realizes her father isn't bluffing. He's actually prepared to have her physically removed from Ryan's property. But before the security guards can take another step, Ryan moves, His hand comes to rest on Isabella's shoulder, a gesture that's both protective and possessive. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen," he says, his voice carrying a quiet authority that stops the guards in their tracks. "Mr. Blake," David says, his tone turning threatening, "I strongly advise you not to interfere with family business." The consequences could be quite serious. "Is that a threat?" Ryan asks, his voice still calm, but with an edge that makes Isabella's pulse quicken. "It's a statement of fact," Ethan Cross interjects, his eyes never leaving Ryan's face. "Some situations are more complex than they appear on the surface. Some people have more to lose than others." Again, Isabella senses hidden meanings, implications that dance just beyond her understanding. But whatever Ethan is suggesting, it doesn't seem to affect Ryan's resolve. "Complex situations require careful handling," Ryan agrees, "which is why I think it's best if you all leave now. Isabella has made her choice, and I intend to respect it." "And if we refuse," David asks, "then you'll be trespassing on my property," Ryan says simply. "And I have excellent security, and lawyers." The standoff stretches for what feels like an eternity. Isabella can hear her own heartbeat in her ears, can feel the weight of everyone's attention. This is the moment that will determine the direction of her entire life. Finally, Ethan Cross speaks. "This isn't over," he says, his words clearly directed at Ryan rather than Isabella. "Some agreements are more binding than others, some debts more complex than they appear." With that cryptic statement, he turns and walks back toward the SUVs. After a moment of hesitation, David and Linda follow, though not before David shoots one last look of pure fury in Isabella's direction. "This is a mistake, Isabella," he calls out as he reaches his car, "and it's one you'll regret." The convoy of black SUVs pulls away, leaving nothing but silence and the lingering weight of unresolved tension. Isabella sags against Ryan's side, the adrenaline that carried her through the confrontation suddenly draining away. "That was," she begins, then trails off, unable to find words for what just happened. "Intense," Ryan supplies, his arm coming around her waist in a gesture of comfort. "They'll be back," Isabella says with certainty. "My father doesn't give up that easily, and Ethan Cross, there was something about him, something that made me feel like I was looking at a predator." Ryan's jaw tightens at the mention of Ethan's name. "Yeah," he says quietly. "There was definitely something about him." Isabella looks up at Ryan sharply, noting the tone in his voice. "What aren't you telling me? You know him, don't you? Ethan Cross. This isn't just about business reputation." Ryan is quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the empty driveway where the SUVs disappeared. When he finally speaks, his voice is careful, measured. "It's complicated," he says. "Complicated how?" "The kind of complicated that could change everything between us," Ryan says, meeting her eyes. "The kind of complicated that might make you hate me." Isabella feels a chill run down her spine. "What are you talking about?" Ryan runs a hand through his hair, his expression tortured. "Isabella, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you days ago." "What?" Isabella's voice is barely a whisper, because she can see in Ryan's face that whatever he's about to say will shatter the fragile peace they've built together. "My name," Ryan says slowly, "is Ryan Blake, but it's also Ethan Ryan Cross." The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. She steps back, her mind reeling as the implications crash over her like a tide. "You're—" She can't finish the sentence. "I'm Ethan Cross," Ryan confirms, his voice heavy with regret. "The man your parents want you to marry. The man you've been running from." Isabella stares at him, her world tilting on its axis. Everything she thought she knew, everything she felt, every moment of trust and intimacy they've shared, all of it was built on a lie. "No," she whispers, shaking her head. "That's not possible. You can't be him." "You're nothing like what I expected. I go by Ryan with friends," he explains, his voice urgent as he sees the devastation in her eyes. "Ethan is what the business world knows me as. When you said you were running from Ethan Cross, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to tell you, but then I got to know you, and I realized I didn't want you to see me the way you saw him, as some monster your parents had chosen to control your life." Isabella's breath comes in short gasps, panic and betrayal warring in her chest. "You lied to me," she says, her voice breaking. "Everything we shared, everything I told you about being afraid of him, of you, you just sat there and let me pour my heart out. I never lied about how I felt." Ryan, Ethan, says desperately. "Everything between us, Isabella, that was real. The connection we have, the way I feel about you, none of that was fake." "How can you say that?" Isabella backs away from him, her eyes blazing with hurt and fury. "You let me think you were someone else. You let me trust you, let me fall for you, when all along you were the enemy I was running from." "I'm not your enemy," Ryan says, stepping toward her. "I never wanted this arranged marriage any more than you did. When I met you, really met you, not just as a name on a contract, I realized I wanted something real with you, not because our families decided it, but because I chose you. Chose me." Isabella's voice rises, all the pain and betrayal spilling over. "You manipulated me. You took advantage of my vulnerability, made me think I was safe with you, when all along you were the predator I was trying to escape." "That's not how it was," Ryan says, his own voice rising with desperation. "Yes, I should have told you sooner. Yes, I made mistakes. But what happened between us, Isabella, the way we connected, the way we felt about each other, that was real." Isabella shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what was real anymore. How can I trust anything you say? How do I know this isn't just another manipulation, another way to get what you want?" The question hangs between them like a chasm that can't be crossed. Ryan's face is etched with pain, but Isabella can't bring herself to care. The man she thought she was falling in love with doesn't exist. In his place stands the enemy she's been running from all along. "Get out," she says quietly. "Isabella, please, let me explain. Get out!" she screams, her voice breaking with the force of her emotions. "I can't look at you right now. I can't. Just leave me alone." Ryan stares at her for a long moment, his face a mask of anguish. "This isn't over," he says finally, echoing Ethan Cross's words from earlier. "I'm not giving up on us." "There is no us," Isabella says, her voice flat and empty. "There never was. It was all a lie." Ryan flinches as if she's slapped him, but he doesn't argue. He simply nods once and walks toward the door, leaving Isabella alone with the wreckage of everything she thought she knew. As the door closes behind him, Isabella collapses onto the sofa where they made love just hours before. The room feels enormous and empty now, echoing with the ghost of intimacy that she can no longer trust. She's run from an arranged marriage only to fall into the arms of the very man she was trying to escape. And despite her anger, despite her sense of betrayal, part of her heart still reaches for him, for Ryan, for the man she thought he was. But Ryan Blake was a fiction, a careful construction designed to make her feel safe, while leading her exactly where Ethan Cross wanted her to go. The question now is what she's going to do about it. Isabella spends the rest of the day in a haze of anger and heartbreak. She paces Ryan's house, Ethan's house, feeling like a caged animal. Every room holds memories of their time together, conversations that now seem tainted by deception. The kitchen where he cooked for her, the patio where they watched the sunset, the living room where they made love. All of it feels contaminated by lies. As evening falls, she finds herself back in the guest room, staring out at the lake. Part of her wants to run again, to flee this place and everyone in it, to start over somewhere new where no one knows her name or her family's expectations. But she's tired of running, tired of letting other people dictate the terms of her life, even through her rebellion against them. Her phone, which she's finally retrieved from her purse, shows dozens of missed calls and texts from her parents. She ignores them all except for one text from her mother. "Please come home, sweetheart. We can work this out." Isabella laughs bitterly. Work what out? The fact that they tried to sell her to a man who then manipulated her into falling for him. The fact that even her escape was orchestrated by the very forces she was trying to flee. A soft knock on the guest room door interrupts her thoughts. "Isabella," Ryan's voice, careful and hesitant. "Can we talk?" "No," she says without turning around. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, just give me 5 minutes to explain." Isabella whirls around, yanking open the door to face him. 5 minutes? You want 5 minutes to explain away days of lies? To explain why you let me spill my heart about being afraid of you while you just sat there pretending to be someone else? Ryan looks exhausted, his hair disheveled as if he's been running his hands through it. "I know how it looks," he says, "but it wasn't like that. When you first told me you were running from Ethan Cross, I was in shock. I didn't know what to say." "How about the truth?" Isabella snaps. "How about, oh, that's me. I'm the man your parents want you to marry." "And then what?" Ryan challenges. "You would have run. You would have seen me as the enemy, just like you did today when those SUVs showed up. I would never have gotten the chance to show you who I really am." "Who you really are is someone who lies to get what he wants," Isabella says harshly. "Just like everyone else in my life." Ryan's expression hardens. "That's not fair, and you know it." "Everything I told you about understanding family pressure, about knowing what it's like to be seen as a business asset, that was all true. Do you think I wanted this arrangement any more than you did?" Isabella pauses, caught off guard by the pain in his voice. "What do you mean?" "My father has been grooming me to take over Cross Industries since I was 12 years old. Every friend I made, every woman I dated, every decision I made was scrutinized for its strategic value to the company. When he told me about the merger with Chen Technologies, when he said it would be sealed with a marriage to David Chen's daughter, I went along with it because it was just another business obligation." Ryan steps closer, his eyes intense. But then I saw you in that car, ready to throw away everything for your freedom. And I realized I'd never met anyone with that kind of courage. When you told me about being forced to marry a stranger, I heard my own story in your words." Isabella wants to resist his explanation, wants to hold on to her anger because it's safer than the alternative. But she can see the sincerity in his eyes, the genuine pain at having hurt her. "Oh, so what?" she says, but her voice lacks its earlier venom. "We both had controlling parents and business obligations. That doesn't excuse the lies." "No, it doesn't," Ryan agrees. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning. But Isabella, I need you to understand, everything that happened between us, every conversation, every moment of connection, that was real. The man you fell for, that's who I really am. Ryan Blake isn't a fiction. He's the person I am when I'm not playing the role of Ethan Cross, corporate heir." Isabella feels her resolve wavering. The anger is still there, the sense of betrayal. But underneath it is something else. The memory of how safe she felt in his arms, How understood she felt when he listened to her dreams and fears. "How do I know that?" she asks quietly. "How do I know what's real and what's just another manipulation?" Ryan is quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with how to answer. "I guess," he says finally, "you have to decide whether you trust your own instincts. When we were together, when I held you, when we talked until sunrise, did that feel like manipulation? Or did it feel like two people finding something real in each other?" Isabella closes her eyes, remembering the way Ryan touched her like she was precious, the way he listened to her thoughts about business and innovation with genuine interest, the way he encouraged her to discover who she was outside of other people's expectations. It felt real, she admits reluctantly. "Because it was real," Ryan says, stepping closer. "Isabella, I know I messed up. I know I should have told you the truth sooner. But what we have, what we could have, it's worth fighting for." Isabella opens her eyes to find him standing close enough to touch, his expression open and vulnerable in a way that reminds her achingly of the man she thought she knew. "Even if that's true," she says, "it doesn't solve anything. We're still in the same situation we were in before. Our families still want this merger, still expect us to marry for business reasons. Then let's give them what they want," Ryan says, and Isabella's heart stops. "What?" "Marry me," Ryan says, his voice steady and sure. "Not because our families arranged it, not because of business obligations, but because we choose each other. Because what we found together is worth more than pride or anger or the circumstances that brought us together." Isabella stares at him, her mind reeling. "You're insane." "Maybe," Ryan agrees with a small smile, "but think about it. We both know we have something special. We've both been fighting against an arranged marriage. But what if the arrangement accidentally got it right? What if we're actually perfect for each other? Based on a few days of lies and manipulation. Based on the fact that you're the strongest, most intelligent, most beautiful woman I've ever met," Ryan says, his voice dropping to the intimate tone that used to make her pulse race. "Based on the fact that when I hold you, everything else in the world disappears. Based on the fact that I'd rather fight with you than be with anyone else peacefully." Isabella feels her resistance crumbling despite her best efforts to maintain it. The rational part of her mind screams that this is crazy, that she can't trust him, that marrying him would be the ultimate surrender to everyone who tried to control her life. But the part of her that remembers how it felt to be in his arms, the part that recognizes the sincerity in his eyes, whispers that maybe, just maybe, he's right. "This is insane," she says again, but with less conviction. "Love usually is," Ryan says softly. "Isabella, I'm not asking you to forget what happened, or to pretend I didn't make mistakes. I'm asking you to look past the circumstances and see what we could have together. Not as Ethan Cross and Isabella Chen, business partners in an arranged marriage, but as Ryan and Isabella, two people who found something real in the middle of a mess." Isabella looks into his eyes and sees the man who cooked her breakfast, who taught her it was okay to want things for herself, who held her while she cried about the pressures of living up to other people's expectations, the man who, despite his deception, saw her as more than a business asset. "If I said yes," she says slowly, "it would be on my terms, not our family's, not the business world's, mine." "Whatever terms you want," Ryan says immediately. "I want a real partnership," Isabella continues, her voice growing stronger as she thinks it through. "In business and in life, and I want to be involved in running Cross Industries, not just married to the man who runs it. Done. I want the freedom to pursue my own projects, my own interests, without having to check with you or our families first. Absolutely. And I want honesty," Isabella says, her voice turning fierce. Complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. No more lies, no more omissions, no more protecting me from difficult truths. I promise, Ryan says solemnly. No more lies. Isabella studies his face, looking for any sign of deception or calculation. All she sees is sincerity and hope, and something that looks very much like love. This is still crazy, she says. Completely insane, Ryan agrees. Is that a yes? Isabella takes a deep breath, thinking of all the reasons this is a terrible idea. Then she thinks of how it felt to dance with him in his kitchen, how safe she felt sharing her fears and dreams, how right it felt to fall asleep in his arms. Yes, she says quietly, but we do this our way. We get married because we choose each other, not because our families arranged it, and everyone knows the difference. Ryan's face breaks into a grin that's pure sunshine. Whatever you want, he says, reaching for her hands. As long as you're sure this is what you want, not just a way to solve the family problem. Isabella considers the question seriously. Is she choosing Ryan because she loves him, or because marrying him voluntarily feels like winning a game she was forced to play? As she looks into his eyes, she realizes it doesn't matter. The feelings she has for him, the connection, the attraction, the sense of partnership, those are real, regardless of how they started. And if she's going to end up married to Ethan Cross anyway, she'd rather it be because she chose Ryan Blake. I'm sure, she says, and means it. Ryan pulls her into his arms, holding her tightly against his chest. I love you, he whispers into her hair. I know it's too soon and the circumstances are insane, but I love you, Isabella. Isabella feels something warm unfurl in her chest, a sense of rightness that transcends the chaos of the past few days. I love you too, she whispers back, surprised by how easy the words are to say. They stand there holding each other as the sun sets outside, two people who found love in the most unlikely circumstances. Tomorrow they'll have to face their families, deal with the business implications, navigate the complex reality of merging their lives. But tonight, they have each other and the promise of a future they'll build together. So, Ryan says eventually, pulling back to look at her with a mischievous grin, want to call your parents and tell them the good news? Or should we let them think you're still being kidnapped by the mysterious Ryan Blake? Isabella laughs, feeling lighter than she has in months. Let's let them sweat a little longer, she says. After all, they created this mess. They can live with the uncertainty for one more night. Devious, Ryan says approvingly. I like it. You haven't seen anything yet, Isabella says, standing on her toes to kiss him. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Our wedding, our rules, our life. I can't wait, Ryan says against her lips, and Isabella realizes that neither can she. 6 months later, Isabella Chen and Ryan Cross, he's legally changed his name to include both Blake and Cross, stand at the altar of a small chapel overlooking Lake Michigan. The guest list is small and carefully curated, friends who know them as individuals rather than business heirs, a few close family members who've accepted their relationship on its own terms. David and Linda Chen sit in the front row, their expressions a mixture of bewilderment and grudging respect. The merger with Cross Industries went through as planned, but on terms that give Isabella significant control and input. She's proven herself capable of managing both her family's interests and her own, and her father has begun to see her as a true partner rather than just an heir. Ryan's parents, who flew in from New York, seem equally confused by their son's transformation from dutiful corporate heir to man clearly head over heels in love. But they can't argue with the results. Cross Industries is stronger than ever, and their son is happier than they've ever seen him. As Isabella speaks her vows, promising to love and challenge and support the man standing before her, she thinks about the night she hid in his car, desperate to escape a fate that seemed inevitable. She never could have imagined that her escape would lead her straight to the life she was meant to live. "I promise," she says, looking into Ryan's eyes, "to choose you every day, in every circumstance, for all the days of our lives." "And I promise," Ryan responds, his voice thick with emotion, "to earn that choice every single day, to be worthy of your trust, and to love you exactly as you are." When they kiss, sealing their promises to each other, Isabella feels a sense of completion that has nothing to do with business mergers or family expectations. This is her choice, her partner, her future. As they walk back down the aisle together, Isabella catches sight of their reflection in the chapel's stained glass windows. The woman in the elegant ivory dress looks confident, radiant, in control of her own destiny. The man beside her grins with pure joy, his arm around his wife's waist like he can't quite believe his luck. They're not the people their families plan to merge through an arranged marriage. They're better. They're two individuals who chose to build something together that's stronger than the sum of its parts. At the reception, as they dance to a song Ryan wrote for her, Isabella whispers in his ear, "No regrets." "Only one," Ryan whispers back. Isabella's heart skips. "What?" "I regret not telling you I loved you that first night, when you were brave enough to steal my car and change both our lives." Isabella laughs, the sound mixing with the music and the laughter of their guests. "We had to earn it first," she says, "both the love and the trust." "Think we succeeded?" Ryan asks, spinning her around the dance floor. Isabella looks around at their friends and family, at the life they're building together, at the man who sees her as an equal partner in everything they do. "I think," she says, "we're just getting started." As the evening continues, Isabella realizes that sometimes the best stories don't follow the script. Sometimes getting lost leads you exactly where you need to be. And sometimes the person you're running from turns out to be the person you've been looking for all along. Her parents' arrangement brought them together, but their choice to love each other is what made them family. And as she dances with her husband under the stars, Isabella knows that this is just the beginning of their story, one they'll write together, on their own terms, for the rest of their lives. The fairy tale didn't end with the rescue. It began with the choice to trust, to forgive, and to build something real from the most unlikely foundation. And as Isabella and Ryan drive away from their wedding reception in the same Maserati where their story began, she knows that the best adventures are still ahead of them. What did you think of Isabella and Ryan's incredible journey from arranged marriage to true love? Stories like this remind us that sometimes fate works in the most unexpected ways, bringing together two people who were meant to find each other despite all the obstacles in their path. If you enjoyed this tale of love, deception, and second chances, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more captivating romance stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and let us know in the comments which part of Isabella and Ryan's story was your favorite. Love stories like these prove that the best relationships aren't built on convenience or arrangement. They're built on choice, trust, and the courage to fight for what really matters. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love to transform even the most impossible situations. Don't forget to like this video if Isabella's brave escape inspired you, and share it with someone who believes in fighting for their own happiness.